Hello, everyone. How was the party yesterday? Anybody went? Raise of hand if you went. Wow. I really appreciated you being here at this early after a party. So today I'm going to talk about React Hook Form. My name is Keren Kenzi, as Yuval said. I'm a senior software engineer at Tori. In my not-so-spare time, I study psychology, and I also volunteer at Baot, which is a community that helps in the personal, professional growth of women in R&D. So today I'm going to talk about forms. As software developers, we are often required to implement, either it's a graph, a form, etc. But implementing form can be really challenging. Why? We can have different kinds of fields, like email, password, etc. We can have several steps. We might need to send a file to the backend and get some validation error and display it in the UI. And managing this, all the state is dirty, managing the state can be really complicated. And why should we do it ourselves when there is already great libraries out there? Like Stack Overflow, we copy-paste it, so why not use an existing library? But how do you select an open source library to use? So some of you are familiar with NPN Trends by the raise of hand? OK, so you can scan this QR if you want to see the website. I'll give you a minute. And I will show you soon how it looks. Everybody good? OK. So if you take a look at NPN Trends, you can compare different form validation library. For example, up until recently, Formic was the leading library for managing form. But nowadays, React Hook Form took the first place. And when we open the NPN Trends, we can also see the statistic. For example, we can see when it was last updated, how many open issues are there. Like Formic was updated a year ago. We can see over here the bundle size. And if we will take a look at React Hook Form, we can see that it was last updated. Well, actually, it's 4 or 5 days, because I took the snapshot previously. And in the previous years, Formic was the leading one. And what is interesting, you see the drop over here. I think it's happened around December, so I think people were busy celebrating New Year's or something like that, because it's consistent with each year. There is a drop around December. So if they will check the NPM install after the party yesterday, I think there's going to be another drop over here. And if we click on the bundle size, let me see if you show. Yeah, if we click over here, we will go to, we'll be redirected to another site, which is really great, which is Bundlephobia. By the raise of hand, who knows Bundlephobia? Wow, OK, so scan the QR, and you can take a look at the Bundlephobia and see, I will take a look, and search for the libraries you use. You can be able to see the dependencies, the bundle size, similar libraries, etc. So those are really cool websites if you want to search and see statistic information about the library you're going to use. So if we take a look at React Hook Form, you can see the bundle size is really small, only 8.8. And it has no dependencies, which is really great, because sometimes a library can have a dependency, and then there is a bug, or something is broken on some of the dependencies, and we can get really messy things. Like, have you heard about Endgame with the color? No? OK, so there was a security bug that happens in one of the dependency recently, not from React Hook Form, but for another library. So it's really good to check what are your dependencies when you use external libraries, and also check the license, because sometimes when you use an open source library, if it's not an MIT or etc., there are licenses that if you use the open source library, you are required to expose your code. So really pay attention to which library to use, but that's offsite. And let's go back to React Form. We are here for that. So there is a saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I hope that the live demo is worth more, and I'm going to show you a live demo how you can get started with a React Form, and hopefully everything will work. If not, I have an excuse. I went to the party yesterday. I'm a bit tired, so yeah, let's go. So everybody sees it? Do I need to increase? Increase? OK. So I prepared in advance, like the basic hello world of form. We can see here that we have two fields, the code.talks attendee form. We have name and favorite conference. Now, when we want to use a React form, obviously we need to install it, and we need to start by using the main custom hook, which is UseForm. Let me show you what we get when you use it. UseForm, you can see over here that it was imported from React Form. And let's console log the method so you can see what we get when we use UseForm. So I'll try to increase it so we will be able to see. So we get a lot of methods, and we also get the form state, which include is dirty, is submit successful, is valid, etc. All the important information we want when we want to manage a form. Now, one of the methods we get from UseForm is the register method we use in order to register our input field into the form. So let's see what we get when we use register. And let's register console log. Let's use it. And register full name, for example. OK, now let's clear the console, refresh it. And what we see here is what we get from the register method. We get onChange, onBlur, name, and a ref. So let's remove it from here. And what we want to do here is to register our field. We want to use the spread operator in order to register the full name. This will inject the onBlur, onChange to our input field. Just close it. And let's do the same for the second field. And just to make sure we registered everything successfully, let's use another method we get from UseForm, which is handle submit, of course. Let's add it over here on submit, handle submit. Now, handle submit receives two callbacks. One is being called when the form is valid, and the other one is being called when there are several errors on the form. For now, let's just console log the data so we see that everything is collected and being registered to the form. Let's see if we see our data. So now we can see over here we have full name and favorite conference. Now, React Form is also used for validation. Everybody here familiar with schema validation, Formic, Joy, etc. So if you want to switch to React Form, it's very easy. It supports schema validation. For example, if we will take a look at Formic, I've already prepared sorry, wrong lecture. We can see here that I've already pre-created a schema which saying that full name and favorite name are strings, and they are both required. And we need to go back to this, swipe the wrong direction, and let's use the schema validation. We can provide to the UseForm optional argument and call resolver, which is, let's use the UP resolver. And let's provide it. You can see that it was installed from hook form resolver UP, which we need to install. I've already saved us some time. And let's provide it with the schema. And now, when I click on submit, nothing happens because we said the callback will be called only when the form is valid and those fields are required. What is also great about React hook form is that it supports accessibility. You can see here that error inputs are marked and focused, so we know where the error is. So it's really great for accessibility. Let's say my name is Keren, and obviously my favorite conference is code.talks. So now when we click on submit, you can see all the relevant data. Now let's remove it and go to the more intuitive way of doing the validation, which is using the built-in validation. So let's remove this resolver. It also, like, if we don't need schema validation, we have less things to learn and be familiar with, because the built-in validation is really intuitive, really easy to use. So what we need to do here is to provide additional optional argument, which, for example, is required. You can either say required equals true, or you can even give an error message. For example, this field is required. And let's subscribe to additional thing we get from UseForm, which is the error object on the form state. So we can see the errors. Okay, so let's print the errors to the user. What we want to do here, and errors, full name, and message. Let's go over here, refresh the page, click on submit, and we can see the error message being printed over here. Hope you are able to see it. And it's really intuitive, really easy. We can do the same with the next input. By the way, you can specify the mode which you want to do the validation. For example, by default, the first validation is done on submit, and the revalidation is done on change. But you can switch it to on change, but keep in mind that it will affect your performance for the worst, obviously. So you choose whatever you want, whether you want to present the error to the user as he types, or whether you want to wait for the on click, on submit to do the validation. So if I will do mode, you can also select on submit. For example, let's do it on change. And now, sorry, not that one. Let's refresh the page. Now, when I start to type, and then I remove the, we will see the error message right over here instead when I click on submit. The same thing we can do with the revalidation. We can set it whether also to on submit. We can see here that we can choose on submit, but it's really more intuitive, more easy to use the on change, the default values. So let's go over here. And one additional thing we can do is to provide default values for our form. Default values, let's say we want to use full name. Let's call it. And let's say our favorite. Now, see what happens over here? We get an error. Why is that? Because React hook form support types checks. So when we declare our input fields in the default value and it doesn't recognize the favorite conference, we can see over here, hopefully. No, it doesn't increase the, sorry, it doesn't increase the message, but I will read it to you. So we see an error like argument of favorite conference is not assignable to parameter full name. So it's really good for type checking. So let's go and add this one to the default values as well. And let's say code.talks. Let's do some indentation. Okay. So now we will have those default values. Okay, but what if we have child components that we want also to register its input field to the form? What we can do now is to use another thing we get from React hook form, which is the form provider. So let's use it. Now, we need to wrap our form with a form provider. Sorry. Let's take it like this. And here, let's do some indentation. And we need to provide it with the methods we get from the UseForm so that child component will be able to access those methods. Okay, now let's take a look, for example, of number of session attended. So we are inside the child component. Let's edit. Let's, for example, edit over here. Okay, so now we will be able to see additional input, which is number of session attended. Who attended more than 5 sessions this conference? Oh, wow, a lot. I think the rest of you were busy networking, right? Because it's been a while since we met face-to-face. So let's register this input feed, because currently we don't see it being registered and collected in the data we send. So what we want to do here is go to this class, and we want to use FormContext. What we want to do here, register, I will prepare it in advance, and use additional hook, which is use FormContext, and now we have the register method we supplied to the form provider, and we can use it over here to register the input field, the same way we did in the main file. Let's go over here, and now we should be able to see the number of sessions being sent. Let's say we attended 7 sessions. Click on submit, and now we see the number of sessions is also added. Now we can see here that we would have expected the number of sessions to be sent as number and not as a string. We can also do that when we use the form. What we need to do is to provide additional argument saying value as number equals true, and by that, so let's refresh it so it will get updated. Not none, let's say 6. And now we send the backend the number of session as a number. So it's really great. We can, of course, also use custom validation. We can use a method named, let's go to the main file. Instead of saying this field is required, we can also use, for example, validate. So let's validate that our favorite conference is indeed code.talks. So what we want to do here is validate and value, and let's say return value equals to code.talks. Let's see if it works. Now when we click on submit, we don't see anything because we have an error because the form is not valid because I haven't named it code.talks, and now it's valid, and it's really easy. And if you have some callbacks you want to send to the server, some async awaits or something, API calls you want to do in the validation in the backend, you can use the validate to custom your validation. So it's really great. And one last thing I want to show you is the reset method. So a lot of time when we want to submit a form, we want to be able to reset all the fields, right? For example, if you wanted to talk here and you had several sessions you wanted to apply to and submit several CFPs, you don't want to reset the form every time you click on submit. You can use the reset. And you can decide whether you want to reset the form completely or whether to keep some of the values and just change some of the rest. So let's call reset. We want to use also get values, and let's add an additional button. Let's use on click. And what we want to do in a click is call reset. And let's close this button and give it a class name. Okay, let's see if a button was added. Sorry, live demo, everything. Maybe, yes, sorry. Forgot it, thank you. I was just checking if you are listening. Okay, thank you. So now we have the reset button, and when I click on reset, we can see that the number of sessions were erased because it resets the values to the default values we just provided to the UseForm. We can also provide it with new values, and then it will erase the default values and make the default values the values we provided to the reset. For example, let's say that we want to keep all of the fields, so we will spread the get values, and we want to change just our favorite conference. Let's say we want to change it to React Next, which is a great conference happening in Israel. And let's refresh it and click the reset. Right? And now we can see here that it's been changed to React Next, and now React Next will be the default value, and based on the default value, the isDirty field is being calculated. So those are the basic things we need to use when we use React Form. You saw it's very intuitive. I think in 15 minutes or 20, I'm not sure how much time I've stolen from the Q&A, we saw how we can easily integrate our form with React Hook Form. And there are, of course, other methods we can use. React Hook Form has really great documentation, really great videos. It's really amazing. It's well maintained. The creator of React Hook Form is a really nice guy, and he always listening to the community, and it's really, really great library. So that's about it, and I want to thank you very much for attending this session. Hope you will give it a try. And, oh, sorry. Thank you.